Mayuresh, hi, good to be speaking with you. Let's start with pharma itself because a lot of stars there today, whether it's an Entero, whether it's a Concord Biotech, Newland Labs, quite a few names are actually holding up in the green. What's your top bet within pharma? Maybe mid-cap, small-cap?
Afternoon, Anisha. No, two aspects. One, I think within the large and mid-cap pharma names, we continue holding Sun and Dr. Reddy's in our portfolios. Obviously, the rationale behind it remains the same. They've got a very good specialty portfolio, and the expectations in terms of more specialty launches with the kind of trials that they're probably going through, specifically, I think the stage 3 trials and expectations of launches in the next few quarters. I think that will augur well in terms of both the portfolio mix as well as the margins related to these launches, as well as the revenue exclusivity. So I think Sun and Dr. Reddy's is something that we clearly continue to hold in our global portfolios. Within the mid-cap name, Natco Pharma on declines is something that we will be keeping on our watch list. Again, I think the branded generic space where Natco is largely present seems to be unperturbed in terms of any kind of pricing action or erosion itself. The second element also is the kind of margins that they probably make because of the branded generic business. Expectations of few key launches, few key FTFs in the next few quarters, that will certainly augur well in terms of their product mix and the portfolio mix as well. The geographical mix holds up wonderfully well from Natco Pharma as well. And therefore, I think the maintenance of EBITDA margins at these elevated levels can be understood to be a base case scenario for the company as a whole, and expecting, I think, stable and solid earnings growth to continue as new launches takes place in the next few quarters. So I think Sun, Dr. Reddy's as a whole, we continue to hold that in our portfolios. Something like a Natco on declines is something that we'll watch out.
Have a view on Bharti Hexacom. What a listing it's been.
Oh, fabulous one, Anisha. And again, I think the circles that they operate out of, I think they're fast-growing circles in the context of the telecom industry as a whole. ARPUs have held up pretty well for them, expectations of them to cross the 200 rupee ARPU mark as well. Margins have been relatively strong and stable as well. And therefore, I think all these characteristics put together probably ensure that the kind of earnings growth and earnings momentum that this stock can probably exhibit can be pretty solid as well. So to that extent, yes, I think it's a solid listing. I think if investors are probably looking at something in this space, my own sense is that all telecom players, including Bharti Airtel, have done phenomenally well. Jio through Reliance has done phenomenally well as well. The trigger for these stocks is going to be ARPU increases, Anisha. And my own sense is that over the next few months, you will see some element of ARPU increase come through. A lot of the capex, as an example for Bharti Airtel, has been front-loaded in terms of the 5G infrastructure spend. And therefore, I think if you look at the big picture argument for Airtel, Hexacom or Jio in general, ARPU increases will probably mean that cash flows improve. Because of cash flow improvement and because capex has got front-loaded, there will be significant amount of deleveraging that can happen in the balance sheet in the next few quarters. And incrementally, I think that leads to better return ratios as well. So I think the space looks very, very interesting. As I said, my own space and my own take is ARPU increases over the next few quarters.
ARPU increases is what Mayuresh is betting on. In fact, Bharti has had a good pop on its listing itself, 33% premium to its issue price. And Vodafone Idea, on the other hand, that's down about almost 5%. Remember, the board approved the FPO of almost 18,000 crore rupees worth of equity shares, the opening date for which is the 18th of April. Vodafone Idea currently lower by about 4% as we speak right now. Mayuresh, what do you think of this sizable FPO by Vodafone, and would it really resurrect all the problems that it's had in the past?
So afternoon, Aisha, I think it's a very complex scenario for Vodafone Idea, because I think they need this capital not for growth, but for ensuring that the stability in terms of their existing business operations is properly getting maintained. They've obviously been losing subscribers in their circles just by the sheer inability to probably have funds in place, and having these customers transition from either 2G or 3G to the 4G or 5G platform itself. There will be accelerated investments that will be required for this entire transition to happen. And debt at these levels are extremely elevated, more than 1,50,000 odd crores. So I think it's more stability capital that you're probably looking at this juncture to probably ensure that the operations just carry on in the normal course of events that probably take place. So I think within the space, barring Vodafone Idea, which might still be an underperformer, I think all these other three players, Bharti Hexacom again a part of Airtel, but I think Airtel Jio should continue doing well. Industar, Aisha, is something that will have a rub-off effect, and it already has, because that provides stability in terms of the tenancy ratio that Vodafone Idea can probably give to them. Also, I think the need for incremental towers expected to come through as the 5G ecosystem starts building through across the length and breadth of the country will also probably keep this stock in focus. Relatively stable balance sheet, and therefore I think tenancy ratios being stable and improving thereon can be a trigger for the stock even from the current levels. Not suggesting go out there and buy Industars, but I think the momentum in Industars can very well continue.
Move that we have seen on Exide. Should anyone try and fathom buy afresh on both of these counters?
Declines would be a better strategy. And a clear disclaimer, I'm a little biased because we do hold these stocks in our portfolios. Again, I think the entire premise in terms of global majors probably looking at Exide as their supplier for Leon batteries. Even Amara Raja is developing those technologies as well. So I think as these capacities start coming through in the next few quarters, and because I think they've got a very niche advantage in terms of manufacturing these batteries out of the capacities in India as well. Entry barriers are relatively higher because I think new players will take both time, significant amount of capex and a distribution network as well to probably ensure that they probably even get near what Amara and Exide are probably doing. Will mean that their probably dominance in terms of the battery market probably continues. The second element in terms of what Exide probably has, the HDFC Life stake, just in case they want to carry on the capex, which is almost 500-600 odd crores in terms of creating that 6 gigawatt hours in terms of battery capacities, the technological help that they're probably getting from their Swiss partner as well. I think all these steps will probably mean that leverage does not increase onto the balance sheet. And they've got a hedge outside autos as well. Industrials are still expected to do very, very well as capex, both government and private, kick in, and specifically private capex over the next few quarters. And the replacement market as well, where pricing probably remains in favor of these battery makers as well. There is also a small auxiliary battery that is probably required for EV players, whether it's two-wheelers or four-wheelers, which will also aid volume growth going forward. So there are a lot of triggers and tailwinds for these battery makers in the auto and space. So anybody holding on can definitely hold on. Fresh investors need to probably take declines as their buying opportunity.
Okay, that's the take coming in on why Exide could be the buzz of the day. But Mayuresh, good to have you on the show.